At the most awaited session roundtable on the theme Anthropology in Practice, Shaping Policy and Development Through Academic Insight. With due respect, I welcome Chair of the session, Professor BV Sharma, Sir, Director, Anthropological Survey of India, Ministry of Culture. I now welcome Professor Amitabh Pandey, Director, IJRMS, Ministry of Culture, Bhopal. Professor Subboroy, Professor, Biological Anthropology Unit, Kolkata Biological Sciences. Professor Vijay Sahai, former Emeritus Professor, Department of Anthropology, Allahabad University. Professor P. Venkatrao, former Professor, Department of Anthropology, University of Hyderabad. Professor Vijay Prakash, former Professor, Department of Anthropology, Andhra University. Professor S. Grigory, former Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, Kannur University. Dr. Malladi Sri Nagesh, Technical Advisor, Education, Bal Raksha Bharat. Dr. Sunita Reddy, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Professor A. Suratnam, Pondicherry University. I now hand over the proceedings to BV Sharma, sir.
I thought I'm audible. I can. Yeah, we have eminent scholars here as participants of this workshop. And I'm sure there are many sitting here who can also contribute to the discussions that we can have. Thanks to the organizers, finally they are convinced that I should be given some role to justify my travel expenses Kolkata to Hyderabad by Ministry of Culture. And so I'm asked to do this job. Possibly, Professor K.K. Basa, who was supposed to chair and conduct this workshop, this round table, he had to leave. So this round table, as all of us know now, it's on the topic of anthropology in practice, shaping policy and development through academic insights. This is the title that is given to me, and possibly, this question of anthropology in practice. How can we make anthropology more relevant? How can we align our research with programs and policies? Is the question being asked. And that is the reason the organizers wanted that to be discussed. It's being raised at many places, different forums. And of course, I keep hearing this in government meetings and all. I will not make many comments at this particular time, at this point of time. And after hearing to the scholars here. Probably I'll come back. So the first question that we can raise and discuss is, do we see a gap in anthropological presence and practice? First of all, do we see a gap? Do we agree that there is a gap? And if that gap is there, where it is there, in the government sector or in development sector or in the education or academics, where do we can pinpoint? I think this is the first question we can raise and say something about it, respond to that question. So may I start with Gregory? Because you are the one who raised this question yesterday also. Yeah.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be here in the August roundtable, one among the very senior most and distinguished people. And I never expected that I'll be the first person, but Prof BV Sharma, he takes the freedom to make me in the spot. But so off the hand, I can share some of my views. He has put a serious question. Do we see a gap between its presence and practice? You know, for any subject for that matter, unless it has a practical relevance, it will not survive. And anthropology has survived till date, I'm sure, because it has its contribution to policy. In fact, if you go back to colonial times, the materials that had been collected, everything was it was put in practical purpose. But then today we are talking about the post-colonial, to become free from the colonial hangovers. How anthropology is very clearly mentioned, contemporary practice. Any subject can survive only it has contemporary relevance. As we know, anthropology has undergone the crisis. Many people have talked about anthropology in crisis. And you can also identify people talking about anthropology is going to die. But then it is not that, and it has continued. But then we are also facing this problem of how to take the anthropological knowledge into policy initiatives. People are not ready to listen to us because we are very critical. And no one will be ready to accept our view because they want something to please. It has always been there. We always play the role of critical players because we are on the side of the people. Anthropology is people science. We need to be spokesperson of the people. Today we will be questioning even this spokesperson because are we really representing the people? Who are we to represent the people? And today people are much more vocal. So in fact, our research orientation itself should undergo a change, I would say, from the traditional orthodox type of research where we go and collect data and analyze it and we produce results. Today we need to undertake research which is very much participatory in nature. And in the process of research, the people themselves will become the participants. They are co-researchers. And in the process of research, they also become empowered. That is one of the first contributions we make to the society. That the people become empowered in the process of the research that we carry out, which is field-based. So that is already a contribution, if not in the policy level. But then whatever we do, the kind of research we do, anthropological researchers, we have done tremendous number of researches, but to what extent it is being translated, to what extent it is being disseminated, that's the first thing. First of all, whatever we do, the researchers should get disseminated through publications and through discourses, through presentations. And it should also get translated into policy initiatives as well as in action. I am the one who advocate that we need to have a clear-cut mechanism to do that. See, field-based researchers, it has two dimensions. One is, ours is ethnographic, contextualized, field-based researchers. But if it has to become a conceptual, developed into a conceptual framework, we need to compare. So comparative researchers are very few. So we are very much lacking in theories. That is one side. The other side is how much we can bring out the research findings into policy initiatives. First of all, I think we should have a proper mechanism to translate into policy and play the role of mediators between the policymakers and the researchers to take the knowledge to the policymakers. And I'm sure that if there is a clear-cut mechanism, the policymakers will be ready to listen to. I think we are so many people, I don't want to take, so I will stop with this. There are so many things we can discuss, but then, when there is a time for that, we'll do that. But I'll put a full stop here and hand over to Professor.
Thank you. I know Professor PVR's contribution to development anthropology and applied anthropology. He not only taught this particular course in the University of Hyderabad for a long time, but also has written, he has contributed quite a bit research. So, sir, as you are aware, anthropologists are criticized for being good at post-mortem. Right? How do you respond to this?
So each one of us going to get different questions. Yes, we are post-mortem experts. In a way, let me come to that. In fact, I was reflecting on what actually Professor Sharma said in the beginning. Where lies the gap? I was jotting down something and then he took me to something else. No. Okay, I am coming to that. Where is the gap? Gap is from both sides, administration and also anthropology. And historically, the gap started in anthropology with our cultural relativism philosophy. In fact, when I wrote my PhD thesis on integrated tribal development project, which came in 1977-76 time, I wrote my thesis, and then towards the end of the thesis, I wrote 2 pages of recommendations. Because I thought that 4 years I made a study of ITDP, first ITDP in Visakhapatnam. Then my supervisor approved the entire thesis with usual corrections and all that, reorganization. Recommendations he struck off. He said, you conducted a study, you are not supposed to make recommendations. Give your conclusions, that's all. Your study and the results. Who are you to recommend? Because I think the influence of cultural relativism was there on him, or maybe we are not having enough expertise in this kind of policy development and all these things. So what happens is either cultural relativism or a hesitation, diffidence to give policy recommendations from us. And we have many anthropologists who argued that no, we are only academicians. Knowledge is for the sake of knowledge. We don't make recommendations. Then came applied anthropologists who are giving recommendations and then suggestions and all that on policy implications. But most of these applied anthropologists are also part-timers. They conducted some ethnographic studies, some community village or something, and then the recommendations are offshoot. So there are no full-time applied anthropologists actually. Most of them conducted studies and then also became applied anthropologists at some point of time whenever the situation required. So there was a diffidence, hesitation about making recommendations, participating in policy and all these things. Then also, the difference is actually further aggravated by the kind of controversies that were there about anthropologists being isolationists, conservationists. That debate actually ruined the entire chances of anthropology. This debate went on, and then people wrote in different perspectives, Elwin or Gore or others. Then actually this also resulted in a kind of negative image about anthropology, that these people are romanticizing tribal life, primitive society, traditions and cultures and all these things, and then better keep them. They don't want modernization, they don't want development, they don't want change, they want to have museum piece and all that. So this is again a limitation or drawback, a gap that has come, and then we lagged behind among the other social science disciplines. Then the point Professor Sharma was mentioning, postmortem experts. I wrote it somewhere that we are postmortem experts, and then we always criticize, comment. We are trained. We are rewarded for criticism. So if you are a strong critic of government, administration, pointing out their lapses, they have not done this, they have not done that, they ignored the cultural factors, they ignored the people's needs. So all these things actually fetched as our rewards, degrees, promotions, and then visibility and all that. So in that context, we are inclined to criticize. But what is required for administration is some constructive kind of ideas, some implementable, practical ideas. That is where actually we lagged behind. So that is why always criticizing is not good. We have to collaborate. How can you collaborate when you are trained to criticize, when you are rewarded to criticize? So you don't collaborate. Collaboration is not there. Then the gap also is actually because of communication barriers. The language in which we speak, the kind of vocabulary, jargon we use about cultural factors, values, and then all these things. We have to communicate with the bureaucracy and then policymakers in the language which they understand. Precisely. Action points. If some of the people who are in administration, they write action points. We don't write action points. We write paragraphs and pages and chapters and chapters. In that, they have to search for action point. They will not do it. They don't have time. So we have to understand actually the requirements of administration. They have time-bound framework, the budget, and then they are answerable to the political bosses. So the political bosses also have at least 5 years' time. They have to carry out some program and then show the results, come back, go back to the next election and all that. So requirements of administration, policymakers, we have to keep in mind and then do accordingly. So then also the other drawbacks about which I used to speak about our part-time approach. See, development needs actually full-time kind of activity that many of us are part-timers. If one seminar is there, we are ready to write a paper on theoretical aspect, conceptual aspect, something. Then if it is development again, we have. So long back, Glyn Cochrane, first book on development anthropology, anthropology is not going anywhere on a part-time basis. You need specialists in development activities. And you need a different kind of training and orientation. Some kind of macro-level approach, because our expertise in micro-level studies and intensive studies, first-hand contact and all that. But for a nation, if you have to plan and then give policies and all these things, you have to have that macro approach, which economists have. I remember long back Scarlett Epstein saying, if you ask an anthropologist to prepare small development plan for some region, he will say, let me go for field work. And then he has gone for field work, long and lost. Whereas if you ask an economist, in no time he will prepare a plan. They have that confidence. They have that vocabulary. They have the training. And then quantification. We have shortage of quantification. We don't have the macro level perspective. We don't think in terms of nation-state framework. and always micro level. But policymakers and planners, they cannot actually think in terms of micro level things. So we have to have the kind of training, language, our orientation, approach, and of course we have been talking about internships, training, understand how bureaucracy functions. What are their constraints and limitations? Always criticize that bureaucracy has done these, they are lagging behind, or lapses are these. But we have to understand how they function, what are their systems of administration, and then what kind of a line there in which they work actually. So there are many things actually, but I think I am taking more time. So these are a few things which I got. Thank you. Certainly, I'll be very happy to come back.
Thank you, Professor Venkatrao. I think you have really enlightened us with regard to the inherent weaknesses of anthropological approaches for policy, and also some real reasons for gaps. I think now I will go to Professor Subbo Royce. Professor Subbo, you are from biological anthropology, specialization, I would say, and you also agree with me if I say that a lot of research in the area of biological anthropology has come from the university departments. And the traditions followed are probably by and large same in many universities in terms of the focused areas of research at different points of time. Like, for example, the kind of attention given to anthropometric studies, osteology studies, and then a shift to dermatographics perhaps, and then growth, development, nutrition studies continued for a long time, and they are being continued now, and there's a little shift towards human genetics a little later. Now, how do you think all this research that has come from the university departments or other research organizations, I don't think there is any other research organization has contributed to this, how did it really go into the policy and programs? Anywhere?
Well, it is true that biological anthropology is not that biological anthropology. Physical anthropological knowledge was utilized by the colonial rulers, and later on it continued. People of India and other projects, they wanted to have a stock taking of the Indian communities and or the people living over India, but gone are those days. Post-colonial researches in biological anthropology also underwent a lot of change. It talked about impoverishment, how people living in different critical areas, their health and well-being, be at genetic level, and nowadays at epigenetical level, people are trying to look into it. But what I personally think that the departments now need to address the contemporary socially relevant issues which the country like India is reeling with a sophisticated study design, applying a mixed method approach where quantitative data can be substantiated by qualitative data. So that is very important. And we look beyond what Sir has asked. We have many researchers on growth and development in this country. Every university, what are you doing? We are doing growth studies. And finally, you are landing up that they have a higher nutritional status and they have a worse nutritional status, and intervention is required. But nobody took the challenge to look into the fact that why this happened. We are only looking into the numerical data and comparing. But what are the underlying facts? How the power relations work? How household distribution of food operates? Right? Gender bias, gender difference, accessibility, appropriability. All these things, we the biological anthropologists, we have not endeavored to look into it. But contemporary scholars and teachers should be more proactive in training their students to look into a problem from a problematic point of view. That means problematizing a problem will help to make a critical understanding of a particular biological phenomena, be it health, be it well-being, whatever it is. So this training and change of outlook is very important. I will speak later on about the research rigor, how far it should go into. Thank you.
Thank you, Subho. I think, yes, as you rightly said, the requirement to shift to contemporary and relevant research in the physical anthropology research is required. We'll come back to that as to what kind of research is now being planned. Now let me go to Professor Vijay Prakash. He definitely represents archaeological anthropology and a very senior archaeological anthropology specialist in the country. Sir, how do you think archaeological anthropology of earlier times or these times, the research, is contributing to any policy or programs or for anything like, for example, heritage management and kind of thing, which definitely not just government of India is looking, but all over, all countries are talking about heritage and heritage management and issues kind of that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The prehistoric archaeology or the proto-history, which is a part of anthropology, was initiated initially by the Dutabera Patterson's works in 1935 and 36. And since then, the Deccan College, Pune, Allahabad University under J.R. Sharma, and Baroda University, Maharaj University. And these three universities were pioneered to dug out the prehistoric background of India. And that has become a part of curriculum in anthropology under the name prehistory specialization, and subsequently due to the fossil evidences, particularly Betam Cherla caves evidences by Robert Bruce Foote and his son Henry Foote, and recently the Petraclia's systematic excavations at Jwalapuram near Kurnool brought out a datable materials with a lot of potential in understanding at micro level, and now they are becoming part of anthropology. But very unfortunately, most of the prehistoric studies that are undertaken by the prehistorians in anthropology departments are being presented in archaeological congresses rather than anthropology conferences. Particularly Indian ISPQS, Indian Society for Prehistoric and Quaternary Studies, Indian Archaeological Society, Delhi, and these two are the major organizations that have been conducting conferences and seminars in archaeology, but where prehistory has become an integral part of it. And there was a gap between anthropology and archaeology. That's how it drifted away. And there is a gap between archaeology, means prehistoric archaeology, and the anthropology. When it comes to museums, at different university levels, every department is having some museum or the other, maybe a small showcase one and an established museum where whatever the material that was explored, excavated and brought to the laboratories of their respective departments, and they are being kept. While this process is going on, K.K. Chakravarti, I think, he pioneered to have an open-air museum at Bhopal, IGRMS. Initial stages we were there, and it is coming up. And Professor Basha Morning had narrated us about what type of an evolutionary pattern that museums have taken place. Yes, India needs museum. India has a lot of heritage, but the heritage we are neglecting unless somebody told, we are not realizing that we do have a heritage. The heritage of global significance we do have. For the first question, the gap. Yes, the gap is there. Earlier days, not earlier days, during these days, for example, engineers. Now these days, engineering colleges have become more mushrooming, and about 1.5 lakh engineering graduates are coming out only from Andhra Pradesh, where not even 5% of them are employable. And they say that NESCOM studies say that there is a skill gap. when it comes to anthropology, what I find is there is a training gap. The training that we had while we were students, we used to carry petromoxylides to the tribal areas and spend at least 1 month interacting with them, really felt the crunch of the people that were suffering there. But now it is very modern. It is like an excursion and a picnic. And that type of a need to be addressed, particularly for the students, upcoming students. In fact, the fieldwork and participatory observation are more integral of anthropology, and they are fading away these days. And in my own department, the fieldwork was cut down to 20 days initially, subsequently 15 days, and now 10 days. And now even if you go and come, because regularity had been lost, that type of gap I have found. And the other gap between whatever we did, our student reports, MPhil dissertations, PhD theses, they are just shelved in the laboratories and the libraries, but they are not being taken care by any of the administrators or the bureaucracy. And there is a gap between the bureaucracy and the academia. Whatever we say, generally bureaucrats, IAS people, initially they don't accept. And because for the last 10 years, I have been interacting with the education secretaries, and whatever we say, immediately they say no, because they always want time board, what my friend Venkatrao told, and there is such type of a gap between these two. With regard to the museums, sir, as I said in my morning lecture, I said East Coast needs a museum, so also West Coast needs a museum. Lot of heritage we have been missing, and we were pioneering in navigation initially, and that navigation knowledge is still, I think so, it is embedded in the fishermen communities. Their folklore, their ritual practices, their life cycle ceremonies, they do indicate some type of heritage related to early navigation. And in fact, the navigation is the only thing where we have connections up to Egypt, the side, and towards the east side up to Vietnam. We had that type of a heritage connectivity need to be brought and has to be conserved and preserved for posterity in different museums. With this, I think, if at all other questions comes, I will reflect later. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Same points, I'll come back. Yeah.
I think because Professor Vijay Prakash was talking about the gap between the bureaucrats and the academics part of it, and you are part of bureaucracy and now heading an organization, government of India organization, and dealing with the bureaucrats on a day-to-day basis anyway. So how do you feel the gap?
Thank you, sir. I'll be sir, I have been trying to fill. I have been trying to fill the gap, sir. Yeah, basically there are two things, sir. First thing, talking about where do we put anthropology in public policy. So public policy has three frames when you're formulating a policy. There is a formulation part, there is a critique part, and there is an integrated part. Anthropology falls into the integration part of it, where it integrates the policy, both the dimensions of it. Somehow anthropologists kept them in the critique part, which is part of the sociologist and others, which is not anthropologist part. But I don't know. Secondly, coming to questions, do all the anthropologists are consensus to a policy problem? Then government can accept it. If I'm proposing something and there is a counter coming from another department, no, that's a bullshit idea. Then it's... I was a bit courteous, sir. So issue is that we need to redefine ourselves as an anthropologist. Anthropology was subject which was providing it. And now just to say the difference between the policy and the research. Research is you have a problem and you understand a problem. Policy has a problem and needs a solution, which is doable. So you need to give up doable solutions for that. So when I've been into, and it's a struggle. It's not that when I say and they have to accept it. It is always debated, counter-debated, negotiated, and even done. So, so that's what I would say. The gap is just because of we are not understanding how to communicate with the policy makers. So that part, anthropology has to take up. I don't recommend for other social sciences, but anthropology, and they are required very much in public policy debate. There is requirement. Somebody else is filling that gap because you are not filling that gap, and I know who all fills there as a policy entrepreneur. Secondly, I request all the department, do whatever research you do in annual, do you submit a policy brief to Niti Ayog? 1 page policy brief of the research you have done to the Niti Ayog that this department has done this policy problem, and this is a paragraph, like sir was saying, you cannot send so many things, but 1 paragraph of policy brief. If the policy makers realize that there is a solution in your department, they'll approach further for you. But I see people, and evidence-based recommendation is required. PM ko badal do. So that is a democratic process. It's no researcher has a will of doing. I'm talking about certain cases and examples we have seen it. It was more biased on it by ism and other things. Whereas problem is to be solved without isms. There are problems which has to be addressed without ism. Like working in forest policy, we were working with the government. And the foresters want tribal to be not written into the forest policy. That word they don't want to be written into the forest policy. But it is we have to pursue it, you know. There are 30% of the population in the forest areas, and their claim starts as a primary stakeholder. They have a very strong claim. You cannot nullify them. And that's how the debate in biodiversity access and everything can be defended. But I knew how the base document which was made in 2018, it was prepared by my institution. And literally the human and animal, the tribal interface, if you read the forest policy, number 10 strategy, it's been deleted then. So we worked out to get back on the policy. So it's a struggle. It's not that because policy makers, government policies do it. So basically, department has to reorient, and it has a very strong place. And the evidences you collect, like sir was talking about micro evidences. Micro evidence has been cumulatively made into a macro evidence, and that can be put for a policy solution. We need not do macro studies, but like one is doing in Andhra Pradesh, one is doing in Telangana, one is in Tamil Nadu, and they all accumulate and give a symbolic solutions to a problem. And when that is given to the policy makers, they realize. And best case of policy is my institution. Government is investing 30 crores for a culture. If it was not important to them, they should not have made this institution. So they have invested 30 crores per annum for conserving and preserving anthropology. And so that's why it's very important. And whatever we are doing, we try to see that of communities things are addressed. And sir has been playing a critical role in anthropology, public policy from Anthropological Survey of India. The subject is required. The communication, network, and the languages need to be improved, sir. That's what my solution.
Thank you, Amitabh. I think very valuable points. We'll come back to those points again. Let's complete one round at least. I think, Sunita, you have been working on applied medical anthropology for quite some time now and trying to contribute to health policy and programs. And more particularly, you focused on the healers and their possible role in the healthcare or community participation in healthcare kind of issues. Finally, out of all the research that you have made, what is your take on gap?
Thank you, sir. So when I did medical anthropology and joined JNU, and it's a interdisciplinary department, social medicine, community health, where there are doctors, they first asked me to unlearn anthropology and learn public health. And that I did for a while. Then I realized I'm falling in between. Neither I'm towards doctors nor I'm getting away from anthropology. And then when I offered this course on application of anthropology in health, I realized that most of them are teaching research by anthropologists. Medical anthropologists, so Kleinman, Robert Hahn, Nancy Skepper, Cohen, they're all anthropologists, Paul Farmer, and they have significantly contributed to public health. So they don't want to name anthropology, and all the contributions are coming from medical anthropologists. So what I realized, the gap is that we in India, like anthropologists are sidelined. Every bit and pieces is taken away by different subjects, whether it's sociology, economics, market research, cultural studies, development studies, and liberal arts. So they have taken away bits and pieces of our discipline, and we are not really putting our foot front and then also trying to make it visible. So I have a couple of points to share on that. If you permit me in the second round, I will. Otherwise, I'll keep on continuing. Yeah, so I'll come back.
I think I'll now go to Dr. Jesuratnam for this. Jesuratnam garu, I know that the way sociology and anthropology distinguished in terms of how close are anthropologists with the have-nots and powerless people, and how sociologists approach the subject, taking the sides of people who are more powerful and all. How do you think anthropology has specifically contributed to the policy and programs of the marginalized and the weaker sections of the society, and specifically in Indian context?
Thank you, sir. Yeah. As we know that anthropology, sociology, always we are in different dimensions, I feel. As the origins of anthropology states that we are more concerned with simple societies, small-scale societies we have been studying, and we have been developing our own theories and concepts. However, the wider spectrum of human society we never concentrated earlier, and particularly the complex societies and like the industrial societies, agricultural societies, our role is dismally low. And in that way, we are more confined to the aboriginals and Indian context, we say tribals and so on. In that way, our contribution towards the policy has been very much limited. While sociologists and economists and other disciplines, they have very broad and wider theoretical frames to address the day-to-day issues. Whereas anthropology is lacking in that way. Always we think about the emic, the native, the what culture specific and so on. For the governance, all these things are not so important. Rather, they have a common, a plan to address the issues. In that way, though we always say that it requires so much of diversity is there, so much of variance is there, therefore we cannot have a common goal program as such. In that way, the sociologists are overtaking us. They take many things what an anthropologist have been doing. And most of the popular sociologists in India, they are practical anthropologists, but functionally they are different. So in that way, they have a better chance of contributing to the issues rather than anthropologists. So in that way, we have to, of course, nowadays we are doing that. We are coming out of our closed, narrow shell, and now we are working on rather complex societies and also the pressing issues of the societies. Still, we are yet to get that accessibility with the people in governance. And nowadays we have most of our anthropologists entering into the field of governance and administration. they should give a more and a better picture of anthropology rather than the picture of their own self. And this is one of the drawbacks of anthropology. Anthropologists were there in planning commissions over the years, ages. But it is Professor so-and-so. What about anthropology? It's nothing. So this kind of, what we say, our narrowness should be overcome so that we can also equally contribute. With this, I will.
I think I will now go to our NGO representative here. He working in the area of education for quite some time. How do you think anthropology can contribute to the NGO sector in terms of your programs?
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. You're all experts. Basically, I'm from very typical rural development background. I'm representing Bal Raksha Bharat as an NGO called Save the Children. And I'll take one point from the language, anthropology language. More or less, I think NGO language is also similar to anthropology language because we'll also face a lot of challenges. We also criticize, we will also challenge the data, we'll also challenge a lot of things. But generally, initially, we have, as a part of our projects, we'll do studies, assessments. We'll also present the data, how really practice, how it is happening, and generally what is the challenge and what are the difference between the data and the practical situation. So keeping all these challenges, what we have done, we have started action research methodology. So there we got little success. However, then generally, NGO generally they'll make models. If you make any model, maybe 100 schools, 50 schools, or any education, generally, no, we have thousands of schools. It's very difficult to manage this model or replicate this model. So then we started a theory called theory of change. So because theory of change, generally, definitely seeing is believing, right? But anthropology, making a lot of studies, assessments, a lot of findings, you also give recommendations. And generally, what I'm observing nowadays, each department, even though having experts, having very specialists, they are hiring people from different departments. But there is no link between the department requirements or needs, the ideas given by the separate team of people. That's a mismatch, actually. So why, when we started this theory of change, some areas we really got appreciation but however, there is a tagline, low cost, high impact. That is the policy we follow generally. But I'll take one STEM education. For example, United Way is doing STEM education. STEM laboratories they establish. That is need of the hour because we need to empower the children on science, technology, engineering, mathematics, where it's a major demand of new education policy. So where I'm seeing anthropology definitely is a different department, really they are intensive, they're working, but we need to look at the practical approaches. And also we need to connect with the community and anthropology concepts. But they need to vet, or they need to experiment and create an experience, practical experience. So that's maybe a mismatch. And if you take the example of education, for example, I'll quote on an example. We have done a study on MIS. DICE data, every department will release the DICE data. We have made a study, very intensive study. We have associated with very strong and very eminent research institute for making study on MIS, DICE data. But we have found a lot of the findings and challenges while presenting, but we said, no, these are all not a proper findings. So these are the challenges where we look at, but education projects, we are creating models, we are advocating to replicate if it is no cost and low cost. So that way we need to create some kind of a room for experimentation to give some seeing is believing kind of examples we need to give to the government. And definitely each department or policy makers has to have strong association with universities, research organizations. Then only they'll get a feel of how it is happening in the field. That is the actual mismatch. What is my feeling? Thank you very much, sir.
University research, NGO requirements, and also policy, government requirements also. Okay, I think finally I'll go to the senior most anthropologist of this group, Professor Saha sir. You were very critical of anthropological research this morning, and you were saying that no fundamental research, no great thinking, and no contribution from the Indian scholars to anthropological theory. Yes, and you are also talking about your own kind of anthropology also, right? Now, given that kind of understanding of research that is happening in Indian universities and also maybe research organizations like ANSI and others, what is your take on actually teaching and research in the area of applied anthropology? Because applied anthropology and development anthropology may not support so much your theory building process.
Thank you very much. Well, I listened to everyone, and for the last 2 days, we have been sharing our mind and discussing all these issues only. But you said that I've been very critical of applied anthropology and a lot of other things also you said. But applied anthropology, yes, I still believe that applied anthropology has very much relegated the fundamental researches in anthropology during the last several decades. In applied anthropology, anthropologists apply for projects to do some applied and action research. With this also, I have certain reservations. I have no hesitation to say, in my entire anthropological career of the last more than 45 years, I have not done any project. But not because I could not, but because I did not. This is one thing very clearly. Not that I could not do any project, but I did not. Because in our times, not today, I had a very bad, rather negative view, because I saw, I would not like to name because now some of them are no more today, but they carried a number of projects, and I tried to understand that what is the ultimate contribution of such things, such scholars, because contribution, in my opinion, you have asked me, I've said a lot of things today very, very emphatically, and again I am saying that contributions of an anthropologist, in my opinion, does not depend upon the position that he holds, any position that he holds, but the contribution, I consider that what he writes for the posterity, what he leaves in writing to the posterity, that is what, in my opinion, is the real contribution. In this very context, I am reminded of one of my very favorite anthropologists, Framboise. Framboise, when he was retiring, after 50 years, he started Columbia University with 2 rooms at his disposal. And when he was retiring, in those days, sometime in the 1950s, probably he was retiring early 50s, Columbia University happens to be one of the biggest universities in the world. And everybody knows that maximum number of professionally acclaimed anthropologists, internationally acclaimed anthropologists, were all during the 1950s and 60s, up to 70s also, the students of Framboise only. And therefore he was said to be the father, the hero, and the guru of American anthropologists. You know, when somebody asked him at the time of his retirement, that you started the discipline, anthropology here, with 2 rooms only at your disposal. Now when you are retiring, this is supposed to be the biggest department of anthropology. How do you feel? His reply was very inspiring. He said, building does not constitute university. That means it is the research, quality research, that counts, and that is the main function of any university department and all. Well, I'll be very short. I may give you the, but then I listened to Professor Gregory also very nicely. He has said the survival of anthropology. Survival of anthropology. Professor Sunita also said, perhaps as I heard, anthropology is anthropologists are sidelined. Something like this you said, no? It's true. But survival, anthropology will survive always. Always. Because, without quoting, I say, anthropological questions are timeless. Anthropological questions are timeless. Because they are centered around the very existence of human being and human behavior. As long as mankind survives, anthropology will also survive. Another scholar says that anthropology began whenever man began to think about the difference between himself and the others or his neighbors. So this difference, right from the beginning, it has been involved. And ever since man's appearance on earth, this is being there. So, of course, university teaching and institutionalized anthropological teaching is a different thing, but anthropology will survive as long as human beings survive. Well, I don't want to take any more time, but I can respond to any question if I am asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think with very relevant points about undertaking projects and the relevance of projects also. Very good. I think my friend Gregory is laughing at me because he knows that I have done good number of projects. Each of those projects has contributed to the policy and program. I will not go into the details of my reports now because this is not the place I should be doing it. But I'm happy that I have contributed to the policy, RNTCP, revised national tuberculosis programs, and also the recent community participation. No, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that it's not that, projects have no relevance and all. Yeah, we'll come back to that. I think the organizers will not give me more time anyway. Maybe first round is completed with some difficulty because there are many good number of speakers. But I think I should hear again from Professor Venkatrao about what is that he would say now, after hearing to others with regard to how anthropology can tune itself to the policy and program.
I will start with the last sentence from by Vijay Sohai. Anthropology survives. No doubt about it. Anthropology survives. But anthropology departments are declining. That is the worrying aspect for us coming from the departments. There's no doubt about the survival of the discipline. It will survive. But it is being taken up, as Dr. Sunita said, that others are all doing anthropology and then they are flourishing by doing anthropology. Ethnography, every other department does, they claim. No. But one thing which we are talking about initially is the gap and then existing, and then one of the reasons for the gap is lack of clarity about the role of anthropology. Of course, diversities are strength. Diversities always are strength, anywhere. Anthropology also, our strength comes from our diversities. But with regard to the development bureaucracy, the role of anthropology is always confusing. There are analysts, there are advocacy, evaluation, social impact assessment. There are claims that we are social doctors, social engineers, extravagant claims. Can we do social engineering? Can we behave like a social doctor? Maybe you can talk about the social ills, but treatment, You don't have any solution. So these kinds of claims actually have not cut ice with anybody. Then when we are students, we are given that, no, we are having a major role in development. All students of anthropology think that, oh, they are going to play a major role in development, but later they will realize what is actually our role. Public perception and perception from bureaucracy about anthropology is a drawback. Public also, it's not clear. All of us have faced the problem. When I say I'm an anthropologist, people ask, what is anthropology? Any number of us have faced this question that unable to explain what is anthropology to somebody, because the perception that study of bones, study of stones, or study of tribals. This is a common perception. Then if you say that we will contribute to policy, planning, development, then there is always a question mark that what these people will do in this kind of situation. Then communication with other disciplines is nil. We think that development is interdisciplinary activity and disciplines have to collaborate. But we think that, many of us think that, no, we are qualified enough to give suggestions to development experts. Unless there is communication and collaboration with other disciplines, and then other disciplines do not bother about anthropology, like the situation in JNU that you forget your anthropology and then learn other things, and then, but they'll do anthropology and all that. So this communication aspect is the major thing that the discipline, and then we have to accept that inadequacy of single approach, single disciplinary approach. We have our strength. We have to highlight our strengths, but at the same time accept that we are not the only one. All other disciplines are there. So I think Professor Sharma will be happy if I stop.
Just because of the time only. Sunita ji, I think from you I would like to hear. See, anthropological contribution to public health, health policy, health programs is very clear and very established now also in Indian context as well as the other. And this country particularly being very diverse, very heterogeneous with different ethnic communities, distinct cultures and all, the culturally sensitive healthcare delivery or a policy for culturally sensitive healthcare delivery is something which people are looking for. How do you think anthropology especially can contribute to this kind of, field?
So continuing with my earlier point also, how we are contributing to public health, my work on medical tourism and surrogacy, actually surrogacy project was done by Ministry of Women and Child. And that document is referred every time they are making a law. Recently there was a law also. So it's not that research is not translated to policy, but it has to reach to the policy maker, and definitely a policy paper has to be there. So how do we write a policy paper? That we have to learn. And secondly, the healers, which we are doing the research on healers, is also something which we need to bring a policy which is not there. And with IGRMS and Professor Pandey, we've been trying to advocate with the Ministry of Ayush to make this policy for the non-codified healers. I think anthropologists have to play a major role, and I agree with Professor Sahai that it has to be very academic, scientific, and knowledge which, the rigor has to be there in methodology and the philosophy of anthropology. But from students' point of view, I just want to add 2 minutes about the careers, because from my time till today, students are clueless where to go after doing their master's or PhD. But then we need to have many strategies to make sure that there is a pathway, and based on your passion and your skills, you can get into many areas, because a lot of anthropologists are working in various fields. It's not just academics or civil services. You'll see them everywhere, but their identity get lost when they are into different fields like corporate or so. New designs, new courses have to come up in the universities, where we have now design anthropology, brand anthropology, business anthropology. And unfortunately, we have to market ourselves. We don't want to do that, but that's the only way to make sure that we are visible and we produce results which, if you look at MSW, that subject doesn't have very theoretical background. It draws a lot from the sociology. But look at MSW, they have campus placements. Their students are absorbed immediately because they are finding solutions. So unfortunately, we have to also follow that path to make sure that we are delivering something, and that has to follow with the process of research and then applied or action and see the outcomes, which needs to be shown to the bureaucrats and the policymaker. So, and skills, like we are very good in ethnography, but then mixed method, as sir said, it's more wanted. That's why that's what policymakers wants to. So I think we need to work on careers, we want to work on courses, design new courses, and then only possibly we'll be more visible and our students can get some career opportunities soon after they finish their courses. And even if the skills are not available within the departments, you should, now it's all open universities, you have Coursera and many other courses, complement your degrees and skills, and then you'll be in a position to get good jobs. So I'll stop here. There are many more things which I'll share, maybe one-to-one or maybe in other programs which we do through our foundation.
Since this is the last session of this seminar, and it is now 17:49, and many people have to catch trains, flights and all after this, I don't think we can extend this beyond a particular time. So I'm sorry that we are not able to complete our discussion, and also I'm sorry that the audience are not given chances to participate. But I think I have got signals that I should close this at the earliest. So I will. I can only say that all of you should excuse me for all, and we will close. And I close this thanking all the participants for the important points that they made on this particular topic. Senior scholars and all. We will continue the debates and discussions also. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I request everyone to please be seated. We have a formal valedictory session. I request Subho Rai sir to preside the valedictory session.